Assalamualaikum. My name is Putri Nur Alisha Airin binti Ramli. My student ID is 2020 89 16 and 68.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Maisara binti Ahmad Nazari. My student ID is 2020 616 388.
My name is Wan Sumaya binti Wan Osman. My student ID is 2020 481848.
My name is Siti Asha binti Ismail and my student ID is 2020604284. Today, we will describe about Election Commission and its function in Malaysian election process.
The Election Commission of Malaysia, which is known as Suruhanjaya Pilihan Raya or SPR, is a commission set up for ensuring fair and equitable operations in undertaking the elections in Malaysia. The Electoral Commission is one of the governmental bodies in maintaining the continuation of candidate selection for elected representatives in the country's administration. Also, the establishment of Election Commission as well as its role to manage voters registration, demarcation, and conduct election clearly as enshrined in the National Constitution. Now, let's move on to the History Election Commission. The Election Commission was formed on 4 September 1957 under Article 114 of the Constitution of Malaysia, which empowers it to conduct elections for the Dewan Raya and state legislative bodies. As its establishment, the Election Commission only consisted of a chairman and two members, Datuk Dr. Mustafa Al-Bakri Hassan, together with Lee Oban and Tit Singh. After the formation of Malaysia in 1963 and the inclusion of Sabah and Sarawak, another member was added to represent the two states on a rotation basis. Dato' Abram Maziki Nur from Sarawak was the first member appointed. In addition, the Election Commission established a secretariat to carry out its responsibilities, which is managed by a secretary. Hence, a secretariat was set up to fulfill the Commission's functions and carry out its decisions, with a secretary met the chief administration. The first Election Commission secretary was H. Cassidy. Next are the vision, mission, and members of Election Commission, which is SPR. So here is the vision of Election Commission, which is upholding election management institution to uphold national democracy. This is a mission of Election Commission to strengthen more efficient election management, transparent and fair, based on constitution and law to strengthen people's trust. As you can see, here are the members of the Election Commission.
Next, there are three main components of the election division. First is the Federal Electoral Division. The Parliamentary Constituency is another name for the Federal Electoral Division. A member of the House of Representatives represents it. It consists of a combination of several state legislative assembly constituencies, except for the Federal Territory, which only has parliamentary constituencies. The House of Representatives consists of 222 elected members. Each member is elected to represent a federal constituency. Next is the State Electoral Division. The State Electoral Division is indeed referred to as State Legislative Assembly Constituency. This is because just one state assembly member represents it. It is made up of a number of different voting districts. The state legislative assemblies for the various states consist of an elected number of members. Each member is elected to represent one state constituency only. And lastly is the voting district. For the Federal Territory, a voting district is a local constituency within a state or federal constituency. Its purpose is to make the establishment of voting stations easier. The voting district consists of a combination of several localities, which is the smallest unit in a constituency, determined based on the address on the identity card.
Next, we move to Function Election Commission. Okay, the first function of Election Commission is conduct, review, and redelineation of parliamentary and state constituency. Every 8 years, the Election Commission is responsible for inspecting the boundaries of state constituencies and parliamentary. Delineation is an important characteristic that will change as the transition occurs. The geography of elections focuses on the geographic component of election analysis, such as the study of space patterns and power in voting, as well as the impact of historical, sociological, economic, and local factors on voter behavior and election results in a given location. Next, the second function is setting the date after the dissolution of Parliament. Following the dissolution of Parliament, the Election Commission has 60 days to arrange elections so that the authorities can elect new elected representatives and a new government. The Election Commission will conduct a special meeting to set the election date. The two important dates are Candidate Nomination Day and Election Day. The Election Commission will also establish the date of providing an election letter to an election official, the date of election notice, the electoral register to be used in elections, and other governance and election process decision. Okay, the third function is election budget preparation. Election finances are a priority for the Election Commission. The Ministry of Finance must approve the budget allocations for elections in accordance with the requirements of the allocations proposed by the Election Commission. The first step in preparing the election budget is for the Election Commission Secretariat to hold many internal meetings at the headquarters and state-level directors to generate estimates based on particular specification. Some elements of logistic planning, transportation, and certain equipment had to be obtained outside the tender or pace of quantitation in preparing for election management. Last but not least, the function of Election Commission is voting district. The Election Commission established a requirement that there is only one voting center in each voting district, in a safe and controlled environment. Staff assisting confirming the voter's name and then provide a slip with the polling place number to the voter whose name is in the elective register at the voter's location in order to identify the voting channel. Besides, the voting district division is added the voting district in the case of an increase in the number of registered voters.
The first process of election in Malaysia is with a notice of election. After Parliament or the State Legislative Assembly is dissolved or vacancy occur, the Election Committee shall send a writ to the returning officer under the Election Act 1958. The election may be conducted by returning officer. Election notice will be made public and posted in public areas. The notice must include information such as the candidate nomination date and the voting date. If a polling date is set instead of regular polling date, an early voting date will be set for individuals who are unable to vote on the scheduled polling date. The second process is nomination. A date is set for candidates to present nomination papers to their respective returning officer. They must do so between 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on the day of nomination of candidates. The candidate must pay a 10,000 ringgit Malaysia deposit to contest for a parliamentary seat and 5,000 ringgit Malaysia to deposit to contest for a state seat. The assistant returning officer will assist the managing officer to ensure that the candidates are fit and qualified to contest in the election. A bankruptcy who has not yet been discharged, is insane, or has renounced his or her citizenship is an example of disqualification. Following the proper review, the returning officer is expected to declare the names of candidates and their parties contesting the parliament and state assembly election. The returning officer will announce the names of the eligible candidate after 10 a.m. Next process is election campaign. When the nomination procedure is completed and the contesting candidates are revealed by the managing officer on nomination day, the officer campaign cycle begins and it will end at midnight before polling day. Candidates for parliament may spend a maximum of 200,000 ringgit ringgit Malaysia on campaign, and a state assembly candidate is allowed to spend up to 100,000 ringgit Malaysia. The fourth step is polling. On election day, voters whose names are on the electoral roll will cast ballot at a polling site authorized by the Election Commission from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. However, some localities, particularly in Sabah and Sarawak, have shortened the voting period to minimize transportation issue and for a safety reason. There are frequently multiple polling places at each polling station. So absent voters or those eligible to vote by the short post can vote before the normal voting day, which would be led by a polling station head who is accompanied by 2 or 4 assistants. On the voting day, all marked ballot papers must be delivered to the managing officer's office by 5 p.m. The method of marking in on the finger was implemented in the 13th general election. For example, the voter's left index finger is white within as soon as the voter's name and identity card number are checked and confirmed. Although the Election Commission decision to use ink on polling day is a step backward, it is sufficient to assuage public worries about the voting process validity in the current situation. The fifth step is counting of votes. Once polling closes, the presiding officer will tally the ballots. He will ensure that the numbers of ballot papers received by the station at the beginning of the day is equal to the sum of paper given to voters and the number unused. Ballot with unclear marking will be set aside. After the other votes are counted, the officer will go through the unclear votes to determine if they can be accepted. Forms showing the tally of ballot will be brought to the vote tallying center, where the returning officer will announce the result for each polling station. Managing officer will announce one by one to the public, and if in doubt, he will check it with the Form 30 ballot paper statement. Last but not least, announcement of election result. The managing officer of the area shall proclaim the candidate who won the majority vote as the Wakil Rakyat of the area after completing forms 14 and 15. As a result, no one can dispute the conclusion taken. If there are any parties that are unsatisfied with the election result, they can file an election petition with the election court.
So the conclusion is that the Election Commission is the body in charge of elections. From an organizational point of view, the Election Commission has a variety of roles and responsibilities that differ from one country to another. To enable the election management body to carry out its tasks freely and equally, the Election Commission must be independent of the law and free to act and make decisions in relation to its duty and obligations. And lastly, the Election Commission is accountable for the YDPA in all aspects relating to the performance of functions. That's all from us. Thank you.